Welcome back to the crazy world of CX. My mission to visit every CX store in the world. This time we're at Peterborough, then heading down the road to Huntington, but then we are going back to where it all began, visiting the very first computer exchange store. This is the crazy world of CX. Welcome to my continuing mission to visit every CX store in the entire world. From the weird to the wonderful, the big to the small, I am here to visit them all. This is the crazy world of CX. Hello again, folks, and welcome back to episode 4 of the crazy world of CX. My ridiculous adventure to try and visit every single CX store in the entire world. And one of the ways I'm going to do this is hitting up some CX stores in cities or towns near each other. So this time we are hitting up Peterborough, then heading just down the road to Huntington. But then we're going a little further afield, all the way down to London to a very special CX store because it is the very first CX store ever made. Shopping in CX is very much like playing the stock market. You have to know the prices of the games because they rise and they fall very much like stocks, and it is trying to guess which games are going to go up in value over time and which are going to get cheaper over time. And that's what we're going to try and do this time. Find some hidden gems and some investment opportunities for the future in CX. Of course, at the end of the episode, we'll be heading to my local CX store of Norwich because everyone loves their local CX the most. Before we head out onto the road, I just want to remind you folks, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe. This is going to be a very long series and a very long road to go to every CX in the entire world, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's hit the road. Our first stop this time on the crazy world of CX is the city of Peterborough, and a very beautiful city it is as well, an absolutely fantastic marketplace here. But of course we are here for one thing and one thing only, that is to check out its CX store. Now from the outside it actually looked like a really small shop, but inside it also had 2 floors. So let's head upstairs, and what do you think we're going to find up here? Of course, in most CX stores the entire upper floor is absolutely stocked with DVDs, but this time we do not only have DVDs, we also have the retro game section. This is one of the reasons whenever you go to any CX store you need to check both floors, otherwise I'd have missed the Xbox, the PlayStation and the Nintendo section. And trust me, this was a pretty big section, so let's get stuck into it. Now I don't normally look at the PC section, but look at how many copies of Doom 2016 they have for the PC. Don't forget, if you trade in more than 3 copies of a game, you do have to sell at a discounted rate, and I cannot believe somebody traded in this many copies of this amazing game. Now I have a fairly sizable OG Xbox collection, but I always check this section for any games I don't have. I really enjoyed the Conflict series back on like this generation of consoles. It's a real shame this series kind of died out. I really enjoyed Conflict Vietnam as well as Conflict Desert Storm, and I think there was other ones as well, but more on that later in the video. I like to always check through this section as I just never know what games I'm going to find, and this is a game which is an absolute classic and is actually going up in value fairly quickly. I really enjoy the Burnout games. I cannot believe we haven't had another one in recent years. This here is a game I've been looking for absolute ages, Metal Slug 3, but unfortunately it's got stickers on and also looks a little bit damaged. But fear not, there is a second copy here of Metal Slug 3. I'm sure a few years ago this game used to be way more expensive, and this is one of the things about CX. You have to play it like a stock market and pick up these games when they drop in price, and pick it up I did. Really happy to add Metal Slug 3 to my Xbox collection. The PlayStation Vita is a console which is getting harder and harder to collect for, as you can see here by this very, very small selection of very expensive games. Definitely if you see cheap Vita games, which is an absolute rarity, pick them up, you will not be disappointed. As is the Wii U getting harder and harder to collect for. Like, look at this tiny Wii U section here, but it is one game I need for the collection. It may be Sing Party, but at this point, if I see a game that I need for the Wii U, I'm going to pick it up because it hasn't got the biggest library, and I feel in the next few years this console, the prices are going to absolutely skyrocket. This is the time to pick up some of the absolute classics available on this system, such as Bayonetta 1 and 2, absolutely fantastic games. I do find it weird that I have some of these variants. I haven't picked up any of these at all, and this is a game that I am aiming to get soon, but I'd like to get it boxed with the 2 amiibos. I just think at the end of the day, it's a game which needs the amiibos, so you kind of need the amiibos with it. There was a few of the higher end Xbox games down here, such as Futurama, a game which I annoyingly originally traded in years ago, as well as a very small amount of GameCube games, but it did have some of the best Star Wars games. One of the very weird things about this CeX branch was the amount of games that were not from the PAL region. Like you can see here, the American version of Puzzle Quest, but this was not the only American PlayStation 2 game we found. There was quite a few games in here. Obviously, I had my friend PS2 Many Games with me, and he spotted these from a mile away. It was very weird to see these NTSC games in a PAL store. Talking of too many games, it did seem that this CeX had too many games. Like, check out this absolute stack of stuff in the window here. But here is the thing, you never know what's hiding in here. There could be some absolute gold hiding in this pile of DS games. But sadly there wasn't. But yeah, it must be really difficult for these stores to get these games on the shelf, especially when they just have so much stock. And talking of stock, check out these Wii games. But behind, there's even more copies of Doom for the PC. Crazy stuff. Heading back downstairs, and sadly it's bad news. There was literally no retro in the glass cabinets of dreams. Just a very small amount of consoles and a very, very large amount of Nintendo Switches. While there was sadly no retro games in the cabinet, there were some interesting bits in here nonetheless. A couple of Wii U's, some Disney Infinity and Skylander stuff, one of the classic PlayStations which so many people overlook, a very nice Sega Saturn, and what is this hiding down here? An absolutely beautiful Neo Geo. Pretty cool consoles here. Nothing too interesting about the Blu-ray section, except for the fact there was a lot of steelbooks in here, which are really cool. I'm a massive fan of a good steelbook, but sadly I didn't pick anything up today, but very cool to see nonetheless. Sadly there wasn't much in the way of retro games, but don't worry, there's loads of disc-based games in here. We got Xbox, PlayStation, a little bit of everything, going from the newer consoles to some of the older ones, and these sections were still pretty stacked, which is good to see, as some of these older games consoles are starting to wean out a little bit in CeX stores. Let's start off then bang up to date with the PlayStation 5. And CeX prices on PlayStation 5 games I think used to be a little bit overpriced, but I think they are getting back in the swing of things now and pricing some of these games really quite competitively. This is a game I've been looking for a long while, but I think this can get cheaper. I think this game will be cheaper very, very soon. I don't know how good it is, but I'm a massive fan of the Evil Dead films, so I definitely want to check this one out. This is another game which I did play on Xbox Games Pass, but I do want to pick this one up for PlayStation 5 and play it in the best possible way. £10 is a bargain, but again, I think it can go a little bit cheaper. Moving on to the PlayStation 4, and one thing I always keep an eye out for in the PlayStation 4 section is VR games, as I'm a massive fan of PlayStation VR, and here, hiding below, is a game I've been on the lookout for ages, Robinson the Journey. This is a VR game with dinosaurs. I don't need to say anything more about it. This used to be really expensive, but a lot of these PlayStation VR games are getting a lot cheaper, so now is definitely the time to buy. So that was CeX in Peterborough. Still managed to pick up some really nice bits in here. I was very tempted last minute to pick up this DuckTales game for the PlayStation 3, as this game is no longer available digitally. This is why we always buy our games, but sadly I passed, as it is an expensive game and I think I can probably find it a little bit cheaper. CeX in Peterborough was a very nice store, but next, let's head to Huntington. With the literal hundreds of CeX stores there is to visit around the world, it is perfect for me to find two that are a short distance away via the motorway. So that's what we're doing now, heading down the motorway, onto Huntington, onto the hunt in CeX. Really excited for this next store. I checked the stock online and it looks like they have some absolutely killer retro in store. Let's go. Here we are then, safely in Huntington, and tucked down a back alley is this very small CeX store, but we know well enough by now never to judge a CeX store by the outside, you judge it by the window. So at least there's some PlayStation stuff in the window, that's always good to see. Checking around, we're mainly looking for retro, nothing too much yet, but if we try the other side of the window, well, it seems this side is Xbox themed. So from the looks of it from the outside, we're not really sure what we're going to find in here, but I've checked the stock online, it looks like it could be amazing. Let's head inside then and check out this Huntington branch of CeX. And as you can see, yes, it is a very, very small store, but we do have a glass cabinet of dreams, and it looks like the shelves are fairly full of games. But this is the thing, you can never judge a CeX store by its size, you have to judge it by its stock. So let's get stuck in, have a look through some more of these cabinets, have a look through the shelves and see what amazing stuff we can find here in Huntington. Instantly, it looks like we're on to a winner. Some NES games, some boxed N64, some really nice boxed Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. This is the kind of stuff we are looking for. This glass cabinet of dreams is absolutely stacked with all the best stuff. Even a boxed Nintendo DS, some really good 3DS games, some really nice Wii games. Yes, this is what we like. It even seems like some of the mini consoles are getting some love here. The Mega Drive Mini and the SNES Mini. Let me know which one you prefer in the comments down below. A copy of Star Fox Assault up there. A game which took me years of searching to find. And some, just in general, really nice bits. This is what we like to see when we head into CeX. Glass cabinets absolutely stacked. On to the next cabinet, and here is something you don't see every day, an Atari Lynx, and even a boxed Atari Lynx game. I never had one of these growing up, but I really want to add one into the collection. It's such an underrated, underloved console. I would love to have an Atari Lynx. And also in here was an absolutely awesome selection of PlayStation 1 games, both Black Label and Platinum games. So let's talk a little bit more about these amazing PlayStation games. Of course, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you will know I'm going for the complete PlayStation 1 Platinum Collection. 160 games released here in the PAL region. And yes, I did pick two of these Platinum games up here today. Metal Gear Solid and Tekken 3. There were so many good PlayStation 1 games. It was so hard to pick which ones I picked. But let me know in the comments down below, which games would you have picked up? Moving on from retro to modern PlayStation games and the PlayStation 4 section. As you can see, a pretty sizable PlayStation 4 section here. And I think now is a good time to buy a lot of these PlayStation 4 exclusives. A lot of these games are fantastic, and most of these are like under a tenner now. But trust me, I think in the coming years, these exclusives are the games that are going to get more expensive. I know the Order may not be the longest game in the world, but for that price, it's a good deal. Same as The Last Guardian. I think a game which a lot of people, I'm not going to say were disappointed in, but I don't think it quite lived up to the hype. But it's another one of these really good PlayStation exclusives. And of course, one of the most infamous exclusives recent years, Final Fantasy VII Remake. And just remember, you can get all of these games for under £10. It's a great time at the moment to collect for the PlayStation 4. Moving on from the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 3, and I definitely think these PlayStation 3 sections in most CXs are getting smaller and smaller. This was quite a cool find. Wolfenstein: The New Order, this kind of occupied edition, had some postcards, a little bit of artwork, an absolutely incredible game. If you haven't played it, for this price, it is absolutely a must play. It's an absolutely fantastic, if not totally terrifying, alternative history. And yeah, if you're a fan of first-person shooters, definitely pick this one up. A very underrated game. The final PlayStation themed section we had a look through was the PlayStation Portable, the PSP section. Nothing too exciting here again. These games are getting harder and harder to find. There was this copy of Final Fantasy which I was very tempted by. I don't think it's very obvious in the video. It did have a little bit of water damage. But again, I think this is a console which is going to get very expensive to collect for in the coming years. I have built up quite a sizable PSP collection because I think a lot of people sleep on it. But trust me, I think in the coming years the PSP is going to get very spenny. Moving on from the PlayStation onto the Xbox section, but more specifically, I'm not looking for the Xbox 360 section here, which is sadly very, very small. I'm looking for the even smaller OG Xbox section, and I picked up a game here. When I find it in a minute, we were talking about earlier, the Conflict series, and I totally never knew this game existed. And for £1, yes, I'm going to pick it up. It was quite interesting to see a promotional game from the OG Xbox. Never seen one of these before. But yeah, as I said, always check the OG Xbox sections. Love adding them. Again, moving away from Xbox and onto Nintendo. There was a pretty decent Switch section here, but I don't really shop that often for Switch games in CX. I'm not really sure why. I just normally find they're quite expensive in CX. And at the end of the day, if you're paying retail for a game, you might as well buy a brand new copy. Very small Wii U section here. Sadly, nothing I needed for the collection, which is a real shame. As I said, it's very hard to find them. As well, a very small GameCube section here. Some interesting bits, but again, sadly, nothing I needed for the collection. Wii U and GameCube sections are definitely shrinking. So that was Huntington, and once again it goes to prove you cannot judge a CX store by the size. This shop was absolutely stacked with some amazing retro, some fantastic modern stuff, and just an absolutely fantastic selection. But now on to our final CX on the road, and trust me, it is a very special one. Here we are then in central London, in the shadow of BT Tower, we have the very first computer exchange shop of all time. We are here at the OG. Heading in then, and straight away you can see this is a relatively small store, I think. Not like tiny, but not massive. But again, we never judge a CeX store by its size, we judge it by its content. It looks like it's absolutely stacked in here, which is fantastic. And you know the first place we are heading to when we go into any CeX is the Glass Cabinet of Dreams. And this is an absolutely humongous cabinet, which is sadly mainly full of phones, but we do have some gaming stuff down here, some cartridges, some PS1 games, a little bit of box N64 goodness, a little bit of everything. Now this will actually be the first CeX store I've ever visited in the London area, so it'll be quite interesting to see how this compares to other CeX stores that I've been to around the country. And so far, while there's a reasonable selection of retro, there's nothing really to write home about. I am a massive Star Wars fan, and this Stormtrooper-inspired Xbox controller was super awesome, but I don't think I can quite take the price tag on that one. Moving down, I really do like the Xbox controllers. They always have some really nice colour schemes, especially that clear, smoky looking one. And then we've got some loose cartridges down here. Again, nothing too outstanding, but it's always good to see a little bit of the retro. Going from retro to the bang up to date with the PlayStation 5 section, and a reasonably decent sized selection in here. A lot of games they had multiple copies of. You can see many copies of GTA there, and also this game, Battlefield. Has anyone played this recently? Have they improved this? I did a bit of play when it was in beta testing, and I wasn't really blown away. I am quite tempted to get Resident Evil Village again for the PlayStation 5. I played it on PlayStation 4 and I absolutely loved it. This is a game I 100% need to play. I have waited until owning a PlayStation 5 to play this. Still haven't picked it up, but it is definitely getting cheaper. £15 I think is an absolute bargain. And here is a game I was not expecting to see so many copies of in CeX this quickly, and also the Steelbook version of Resident Evil 4. This is one of the problems with these single player games. After a few weeks they do drop in price, and I'll wait until it's a little bit cheaper then grab it. I thought this was super cool to see a TV set up with some controllers added. It wasn't turned on, I have no idea if it works, but it was super cool to see, and I think it's a good idea to have games able to be played in CeX stores. Let me know if you've been to any other CeX store which has consoles set up. I would love to hear about it in the comments down below. Now I understand there may not be many Wii U games in any store, but it does kind of bug me when they mix the Wii U games with the Wii games. I'm looking, thankfully they're fairly easy to see because they're blue cases, but you know, I've said many times in this video, if I see any Wii U games I need for the collection, I will pick them up. Obviously I already have Mario Party as an absolute classic, especially with a couple of mates and a couple of beers. They did have a few more games down here, but again, sadly I did nothing I needed for the collection. It's getting harder to find these Wii U games. And the same could be said of the 3DS. Again, these often get mixed in with the DS games, but this was a really small section. I do think I missed the boat on collecting a lot of these 3DS games. I've done a recent video of my entire 3DS collection. I'm always looking for other games to add to the collection, but I think this is a section in the shop which is definitely going to get much smaller in the next few years. Now, I was not expecting this CeX store in basically central London to have a basement. And can we guess what's in the basement? You can see it coming up here. It's not just DVDs, we have PlayStation 2, PC games and PSP, but more from that later. But it does amaze me still to this day how much space some of these CeX stores have for DVDs. I kind of wonder how much money they make from DVDs, but I suppose if you're looking for a cheap way to watch a film, a lot of these pound DVDs are probably a really good way to do it. Or even better, if you are a movie collector and like to collect physical movies, CeX is probably a fantastic place to pick these up. But it does surprise me, especially at this CeX store, being in central London just off Tottenham Court Road, they can afford to have this much space taken up by DVDs. Unfortunately, there wasn't much to see in the PSP section. It was mainly OG Xbox games, all of which I already had in the collection, and it was a shame because it is getting harder again to collect for the PSP. I know I keep saying this, but it just seems there are so many consoles that are getting harder and harder to collect for, and when you can get some of these games super cheap now, I would just grab them. Grab them while you can. Back upstairs and going for the OG Xbox, bang up to date with the Xbox One, and having a look through these games. This was a pretty good Xbox One section in this store. Loads and loads of games here. It's just trying to find the right games that I need for the collection. Scrolling through, interesting game here. Has anyone played this game, Gungrave? It is a really cool game. It was on Games Pass, I'm not sure if it is anymore. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking it out. And this game is a game that I will never forget about because I put so many hours into playing this during lockdown with my friends over an internet connection. It was absolutely fantastic and a very rare game. I've never seen a copy of this. So yeah, definitely grabbing this one for the collection. Final thing before we head back to the fine city of Norwich, can anyone explain to me why Spider-Man Miles Morales is £25 on a PlayStation 4 when it is only £15 on a PlayStation 5? I can just imagine it's because the PS4 console itself is so much more readily available, it's more expensive as more people can play it. So there we have it, an amazing CX store to cross off the list of all the CX stores in the entire world. We have been to the original. But of course, no episode of the crazy world of CX would be complete without a trip to my local CX store here in the fine city of Norwich. And let's see what it has in store for us this time. We're starting off this time in the Nintendo DS section, which is also mixed up with the 3DS games. And it is the cheap 3DS games that I'm still looking to add to my collection. Because if you didn't know, the Nintendo eStore for the 3DS closed down recently. So these physical games I think are going to go up in value. Such as this game, Donkey Kong Country Returns, which has gone up £2 since the price rise due to the eStore closure. Moving on though, this is a game I definitely wanted to grab before it got more expensive. Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D. Now a lot of people didn't realise there was one Resident Evil game on the 3DS, let alone two, and thankfully as well there was two copies of this game so I could pick which one had the best cover, the best box, the best everything. This is an absolute awesome Resident Evil game. I am a massive fan of the Resident Evil series and I wanted to grab this one before it got a lot more expensive. Speaking of expensive, I've said it before in this video, the PlayStation Vita is getting very, very expensive to collect for. I think just because there's not that many copies of these games out there. You can see here, this section in my local CX is very small, and I think in the years to come, I've said it again, it's going to get more expensive to collect for the Vita. Looking through the GameCube section here, and again this is another console that's getting more and more expensive to collect for, but it's a console that has some absolute gems on it, such as Beautiful Joe. But can anyone tell me why there's two different versions of this game? One has the yellow cover, one has the pink cover, and then the opposite on the back. It kind of boggles my mind. Does anyone know why there's two different variants of this? I don't want to get into variant collecting, but these two really confuse me, so let me know if you know. Looking through the glass cabinet of dreams, there was some really, really nice retro in here. The only thing I would say about my local CX, they don't seem to get in very many boxed N64 games. You can see that copy of Mario 64 there. Sadly, it was the value box, but I digress. But there's always so much good loose retro. This is a fantastic way to build a collection. And here is a game I've never seen before. This Turtles game on the Game Boy. Definitely one to keep an eye out for. I can't believe it's that expensive. I don't collect too much for the Game Boy, but there was a very, very nice selection of games in here, even if they were loose. Before visiting CX today, I had a look on their app to see what games were in stock, and there was a Mega Drive game I was specifically looking for. The problem was I couldn't find it anywhere, but stick around to the end of the video because I did ask and they did find the game for me. It does go to show, if it says there's a game in stock, always ask. It could be hiding in a drawer, behind a counter, anywhere. It always pays to ask. Now, I did actually pick up a PSP game, which I've been meaning to pick up for ages whilst I was in CX today. I didn't get any footage of it, unfortunately, so I'll give you this subtle clue. It is a game I should have picked up a long while ago, but good news, it is reasonably cheap, but I'm giving you fair warning. If you see this game now, pick it up while it is cheap. Unfortunately, we are ending on a bit of a low. Look at the state of the Xbox 360 section in my local CX. Mainly the same games over and over again. Could this show a dark future for Xbox 360 collecting in CX? I've said it many times. We may be near the end of Xbox 360 games in CX. Back to the games room. Here we are then, back in the games room after another day in the crazy world of CX. And it just goes to show, no two CX stores are the same. One store was chock-a-block with retro, one had absolutely no retro. But one of the most important things to take away this video, we went to where it all started, the OG, the very first CeX store of all time. But not only that, we also picked up some awesome bits for the collection. So the first CeX we visited this time in Peterborough was a little bit devoid of the retro, but when it comes to collecting, I collect a little bit of everything, and this is one of the advantages of CeX. No two stores are the same, and you never know what you're going to find. But one section in every CeX I've been trawling at the moment is the Wii U section. That's because there's only just over 120 games in the entire Wii U collection, and so far I have 64 of these games, or should I say, now 65. Yes, this is the kind of shovelware rubbish I need to pick up now while it's cheap. Sing Party for £1.50. And you'll notice here, this is not the PAL release. But this, of course, was not the only non-PAL release in that CeX store. Which is a bit weird, because some stores are really finicky about picking this stuff up, but some stores will take anything. But at the end of the day, I will take what I can get when it comes to Wii U collecting. Trust me, in the next few years, it's going to be nigh on impossible to grab games for the Wii U. So grab now while you can. Even if they are cheap games, like that singing game. Another section I will always check when I go into CeX is the OG Xbox section. That is because it was the first console I really collected for hardcore. It's one of my biggest collections, and I think, again, like the Wii U, in years to come, the OG Xbox is going to get harder and harder to collect for. And this is a game I've been after for a while. This is one that is cheaper now than it has ever been. Metal Slug 3, and one absolute classic. Now you'll notice this is not the copy I picked up originally in the store. There was actually 2 copies of this game in that store, and while not a super rare game, this is a game which is getting harder to get, and to be able to pick this up for £8 now I think is a bargain, as this is the kind of OG Xbox game which is going to get way more expensive in the very near future. Say what you will about it, but I love PlayStation VR, and much like the Wii U and the OG Xbox, I think in years to come it's going to get more expensive to collect for what sadly became a little bit of a niche system as such. That's why when I saw this game, Robinson the Journey, I definitely wanted to pick this up. This right here is a VR game I have had my eyes on for absolutely years. And the thing is, I think we are seeing the big PlayStation 4 VR price crash, especially with the launch of PlayStation VR 2. This game used to be about £15 all the time. To be able to pick this up for £6 now is an absolute bargain. If you do not know about this game, I think you essentially crash on either an alien planet or Earth in the past, mainly dinosaurs. Essentially, it's a VR game with dinosaurs, need I say more. Our next stop was Huntington, and full disclaimer, yes, I did pick up 2 PlayStation Platinum games here. That's because also on this channel, if you haven't seen my other series, the PlayStation Platinum Project, I am trying to collect all 160 PAL release PlayStation 1 Platinum games. And this time I did pick up 2 Platinum games, Tekken 3 and Metal Gear Solid. If you are new to the channel or haven't seen this series yet, I will link it in the description below, but I did also pick up another game while I was in Huntington. I picked up this game, Conflict Global Storm. As I said, now is the time to pick up these OG Xbox games because they were super cheap, £1. But they are not going to stay this cheap forever. This one's in really nice condition, has a really nice shiny kind of case. I really enjoyed Conflict Desert Storm and also Conflict Vietnam, and for £1 I'm super happy to add this to my OG Xbox collection. It was absolutely amazing to go to the OG, the original, the #1, the Big Daddy, the very first CeX store in the entire world, where it all started. And it's amazing they've kept that original branding. It was so awesome to go back and see where it all began. Even though I didn't find anything too amazing for the collection, I did find this one game, the Jackbox collection for the OG Xbox. The Jackbox games for me will always bring back memories of lockdown. This was one of the games we played religiously every weekend during lockdown. This is one of the games that kept me sane through one of the darkest times in my lifetime. I know it wasn't exactly wartime, but it was hard, and it was finding ways to keep entertained and to talk to people. One of the ways, of course, I did that was on YouTube with this channel. One of the other ways was playing Jackbox. Finally, this time we hit up my local CX in the fine city of Norwich, and specifically this time I was looking for one genre of games: survival horror games. That's because more often than not these go up in price exponentially and get rarer and harder to find, especially so if they're on some of the more obscure systems. One system which is super cheap to collect for at the moment is the 3DS. Recently I did a video documenting my entire 3DS collection, and a lot of people were surprised there was a Resident Evil game on the 3DS, but there's actually two Resident Evil games on the 3DS. We have this game as well, Resident Evil Mercenaries. This is essentially horde mode. It is absolutely fantastic. This is the only way to my knowledge to play this game on the 3DS, and I think this is a game which in years to come is going to be a lot more than the asking price at the moment of £8. But without a doubt, one of the most expensive survival horror game series to collect for is the Silent Hill series. And I cannot believe that CeX still sell Silent Hill Origins for the PSP for just 20 quid. This one is boxed and complete. And I just think, in years to come, this is a game which is going to get a lot more expensive. I have passed this one up way too many times already, and for 20 quid in a minute, I would definitely grab it or regret it down the line. We're ending this episode of the Crazy World of CeX with some advice. Before you go shopping in your local CeX store, make sure you check the app to see what games are in stock. That's because not all games in stock will be out to view on the shelves. Some of them will be hidden behind public eyes, and this is where you can get some absolute bargains. Now, when I checked the CeX app before going into my local store, I saw there was a Mega Drive game on there for just £8. Now, I could not find it in store, but I asked behind the counter, and it turns out this game had been returned because it wasn't working. I bought this game, took it home, and it is in fact working. It just needed the connections cleaning a little bit. It is this game here, Galaxy Force 2. And notice on the side it says £10. This game is boxed and complete and was £8. Here is the thing. You can still get some absolute retro bargains in CeX. £8 for a boxed, complete Mega Drive game in 2023 is absolutely crazy. A lot of people may complain about the customer service and the returns policy of CeX, but I've never had any issue with the store. I knew full well when I bought this game it had been returned as non-working, and they said they'd be happy to take the game back. They didn't have time to test it, and I did buy it untested in that knowledge. Now, I took it home, cleaned it up, and I managed to grab myself a bargain of a Mega Drive game for £8. Now, I know a lot of people have had negative experiences, but let's share in the comments down below some positive experiences of shopping at CeX. There we have it then, folks. That is another episode of the Crazy World of CeX. And yes, there is another episode coming very soon, and I'm going to be trying to hit up as many CeX stores in central London over one weekend as possible. That's right, I didn't just go all the way to London to go to the OG CeX store, I hit up a lot more. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more from the Crazy World of CeX. See you all soon!